I am Ben Dalley. I'm with the Ward 2 Democrats. Very excited to have Fred Hill here for our Ward 2 candidate interviews. The Ward 2 Democrats are doing this series of interviews to allow candidates to speak directly to Ward 2 voters. So very happy to have you here, Mr. Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to jump right into it. I always like to ask candidates to tell Ward 2 voters about themselves. So to kick things off, tell Ward 2 who you are, where you're from, and a little bit of your background.
Sure. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Ben. I live in Ward 2, so it's nice for me to be able to speak with you guys. I've basically been a 50-year resident of this area. I've had a small federal government contracting firm, fairly mid-sized, for about 25 years. And for 10 and a half years, I served as the chairman of the Board of Zoning Adjustment, hearing zoning issues all over the city. So I basically had almost an at-large position now. So DC's at a crossroads. The DC economy has been over-relied on the federal government for far too long, and now it's impossible to ignore. We must diversify our local economy. The housing crisis is pushing out longtime residents, and we need to create more housing. Congress keeps threatening our right to govern ourselves. So I'm running because experienced leadership matters. The leadership that I've earned over the years in boardrooms and public hearings matters, and that's exactly what the moment demands at this point. In terms of my background, my mother comes from a country called Sikkim, which is next to Nepal and Bhutan, so my people are kind of Tibetan looking. My father's from a small community he's from rural Oklahoma, and he's actually from well, part of him is from the Chickasaw Nation. He's a Chickasaw Nation member, as am I, but it's also a mix. There's a whole bunch of mix, Chickasaw, Scottish, what have you. But so that diversity has something that I learned early on. We moved to a town called Poolesville, Maryland, a very rural community. And at that point, I was the only Asian person. I looked very Asian when I was young, and I was picked on a lot, like called chinky, all these racial slurs, beat up because of it. And really, I learned to be resilient and then also how to deal with bullies, which is something that I think we all now kind of are learning to how to deal with. I also learned from my parents at a young age about working. And so, like, I worked as a dishwasher as a very young age. I worked at a pizza place. I always had some kind of small job, which then again, I learned some money, which was nice, had the opportunity to do that. In rural Maryland, we also did have good schools, safe communities. Even though I got picked on, it was pretty much a good place to grow up overall. Then my parents, we moved to Northern Virginia. They started a small company. I learned about how to become an entrepreneur. And so at that level, when I started my own company after college, I'm the one who has to make all the decisions. You know, who gets hired, who gets fired, what the direction of the company goes in, what kind of healthcare are we choosing, what kind of retirement plan are we choosing, all kinds of things that I think relate to an economy overall. And so I learned those skills, and you can't really hide from responsibilities when you're the owner. You can't shirk what's going on. You have to make the hard choices. That also led me to giving back, which was at the Board of Zoning Adjustment, where again, as I said, I heard zoning issues all across the city in all 8 wards, basically trying to bring two members of a different side together. It was like neighbor against neighbor, business against neighbor, business against business. It was very intense negotiations and trying to bring people together under the regulations. And I did that well enough that over 10 and a half years, I got renominated again and again, confirmed by the council that I was doing a good job. Otherwise, I would have been let go. And so then finally, again, bringing to the things that I want to create for the city as well as Ward 2, making sure like, the roads are cleared, the trash is picked up, the rats are taken care of. I mean, really community benefits that I want to make sure are happening in Ward 2 and around the city. And then just finally, I'll touch upon, since I've had a couple minutes here, like defending home rule is something that I think is absolutely important right now. And it's something that I've learned to kind of deal with, as I said, being kind of harassed as a young person. I know that like the bully in the movie, you punch the bully in the nose and the bully runs away. It's really not how it works. You have to be nuanced. You have to understand your environment. You have to maneuver in the situation so that you can take care of yourself and protect yourself. So that's the kind of things that I would do. I'm sorry, that's the kind of experience that I would bring to the council. And I look forward to the rest of your questions. And again, happy to be here in Ward 2.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think you might have touched upon this next question a little bit there, but let me ask it anyway so you have time to elaborate. It sounds like you have a really diverse background, and the zoning adjustment experience seems like you kind of dealt with a lot of the city players, a lot of, you said, a lot of everyday city type of issues. How does your overall experience make you the best candidate to be our next at-large council member?
Thank you. So there are 9 candidates in this race, right? And so you'll get to see 9 videos. I believe that my skill set is the most unique and necessary at this time, which is to say, I'm a business owner. I've had a company for a long time. What I really want to do is, again, grow the economy here in DC, create opportunities for people in DC, and then again, through the zoning experience, help create more housing and help create different types of ways to have housing here in the city. But I think when you ask that question, I've thought about this before, the unique things that I'm also bringing to the table are just my life experiences. I think everybody that you're going to look at, it's their life experience. I mean, no one's had this job before. People, and also I think that I'm coming from a new angle. Like I'm not coming in from the administration. This isn't the next promotion for me. This is the way that I see I can give back to my city in this particular way. And the fact that I was kind of like, I had a very diverse background culturally, and that I was harassed as a child. We didn't have any money when we were growing up. Like I thankfully didn't have to experience welfare, but we were on welfare. I was a kid when we were on it. So like you don't know whether you're on welfare or not when you're like a baby or 3 years old. But we did not have a lot of money, and we benefited from the government program. So I think that lens, being able to look through that, is what I bring to the job that's different than other people in this race.
That's great. Well, thank you for that. I'm gonna jump into our candid conversation questions. There are 7 of them. The first one is public safety. When it comes to public safety, what strategies would you pursue to improve public safety and community well-being in Ward 2, including all of our neighborhoods, downtown, Logan Circle, DuPont, Georgetown, Foggy Bottom, and so on?
Sure. No, thank you. So public safety is something that's been coming up a lot in the forums and things that we've talked about, right? And so as a resident here for 20 years and as being an area resident for 50 years, I know how this city has changed even in the public safety realm. I mean, we were the murder capital of the world, the country, whatever it was. And then there was the different drug epidemics that were coming through when I was growing up. And so in terms of public safety, you need to feel safe in your community so that you can have a growing, thriving environment, right? So again, my lens is that of a business person and trying to bring business here to DC. And if you don't feel safe in the streets, you're not going to be able to have a thriving business economy. So what I would be doing is I would be working with kind of twofold, working with the community level in terms of working probably with the Office of Neighborhood Security, Safety, and Engagement, so that learning what kind of violence interruption programs are working, what kind of truancy programs are working, what kind of programs are working to help people that are actually committing crimes so that they don't feel the need to have to do that. And then also having a strong enforcement policy, a policing policy, where right now we're about 1,000 officers short. So what I would try to do is fund the MPD so that we can get back up to 4,000 fully staffed police, well trained, so that they are community liaisons, people in the community, mental health, training for mental health, seems such as that. And then also give the police the tools needed. I mean, I'm going to cut to the chase whether the curfews come up or not, but cut to the chase wherein, I think that the curfews are something that is a tool in the toolbox for the police to be able to do things, right? Like, I mean, I was talking oddly enough with the attorney general this morning, in fact, and it's like he thought that if he sees a bunch of curfew on the arrest thing, it's curfew, he knows that it's not being handled properly. The whole time this has been going on, he hasn't seen one curfew arrest, right? It's used as a tool for disbursement. And so I would have two approaches: one, helping the community so that there's also alternatives, and then enforcement. So that's how I would handle the safety issue.
Yeah, that's great. The next question is small business and economic vitality. And one reason why a lot of folks live in Ward 2 is they want to live near local restaurants, local shops, local businesses. But all too often these days, when walking up 14th Street, Connecticut Avenue, downtown, you see vacant storefronts, a lot of for lease signs. So we've seen an increase in commercial vacancies. What policies would you pursue to strengthen small businesses, activate vacant storefronts, and support a vibrant local economy?
Thank you. So, as a small business owner here in the city, even though I'm, again, a federal government contractor, I've had an opportunity to go through the process of permitting, regulations, making sure I'm compliant with things. And there's a lot of different regulations that I think are kind of harming the overall ease with which it is for us to do business here in the city. I think some of it is kind of regulation in terms of, at Department of Licensing and Consumer Prevention Protection, how you go through the process. So I would be trying to look at how the process is functioning and how we could streamline that process in terms of actually starting companies here. What I think is the small business environment has not really had a good voice in the council. There hasn't been a lot of people kind of listening to the small business community. There's been a lot of good things that are trying to be done, but it's sometimes gotten in the way of the smaller businesses. Like a book Abundance by Ezra Klein is something that I've been reading and have really been into, and finding that like a lot of the things, I'm a lifelong Democrat. Right. Like my first vote was Dukakis. I mean, I'm aging myself, whatever that is. But like, and so the Democrats, we choose things, we do things, and sometimes little things get in the way of whatever the end goal is. And so regulations sometimes get in the way, different things get in the way of our small business community. I mean, my favorite Chinese restaurant, I always get the name wrong, Da Huang Pa or Po, or on 14th Street there. It just closed on Friday or Sunday. Sunday was its last day. And that wasn't so much their or DC's fault. The rent went the way the rent went. However, I think there are ways that possibly we can have liaisons with the small business community to know if there's a way to keep a small business there or place it or find another place for it. That would be something that I'd be looking to do. I want to be an advocate for the community.
Yeah, the closing of everyone's favorite Chinese restaurant is a real hit to the neighborhood, and I live around the corner from it, and I've
Oh, did you
honestly
used to
taken
go?
more takeout than anything
Yeah,
else, right?
yeah, yeah.
But I mean,
But like Miss
re
Pixie's closed, Miss
yeah,
Pixie's on 14th. And so things, I mean, some people move because they've gotten older, right? Or they
yeah.
change their business styles. But like having a voice on the council that's not, again, a voice that's coming from within, like somebody's was a staffer or a legislative assistant or something, somebody from the business community is what I think is needed. At least
Yeah.
one person on the council. There's 13 people up there, right? And it's great. There should be an advocate, there should be an activist, there should be a policy person, but a business person and zoning is again what my life experience that I'm bringing to the table.
Yeah, and Miss Pixie is a good example. I mean, that I believe that storefront's still vacant,
Yeah, I think
right?
so,
So
yeah.
like as a community amenity, I mean, sometimes there's certain businesses that become community amenities, right? I mean, nobody in the city is gonna let Ben's Chili Bowl close. You know what I mean? Right. And I think Miss Pixie's honestly to me was on that level of it'd been there for a long time. I grew up in this neighborhood. I grew up in Logan Circle area because Miss Pixie's was one of the first, solid retail establishments. It was a
Sure.
destination
Yeah.
retailer, and letting them close. Not that I know what to do to solve it, but I don't know how much government intervention there was in trying to address those problems, right?
Yeah, well,
Uh,
being a voice and listening. I mean, the funny thing is, like, I was just down there again with the restaurants, and I mean, I still forget that like New Vegas Lounge is still there,
yes,
right?
and
And so, like,
that is a
you
good
know,
example of a
you know,
treasure. I have been there in the last 20 years? No, but
right. But see, that's
knowing
the
that it's
thing.
there,
You got to
yeah,
go.
yeah,
I
exactly.
saw that, and I was like, going, I'd been there when I was younger,
People go
right?
though. Trust me, people
Right.
still go
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But yes, I don't know, but I used to I used to own a restaurant in Adams Morgan. So I've been in the restaurant business, and I've seen that side of operating in DC, and it's not easy.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, restaurant
Oh,
business is hard
yeah.
anyway.
Oh no, terrible.
Um, but you know, I don't have the answer, but if there were ways that the district government could support small businesses more and also catch businesses before they fall off a cliff.
No, I think there is. I mean, part of the answer is having someone listening,
Yeah.
right? And that the regulations, if they're getting in the way, or like if things are siloed, that's another thing that I've seen. Like one department doesn't know what another department is doing, right? And so you might have. I'll take the clean hand certificate thing for example, right? Like
Yes.
you
It's
might
always that
not.
thing.
It started for a tax reason, right? And now it's
Yeah.
like the dog walker fee hasn't been paid or something, and
Yeah.
you spend a week away from your business trying to figure out how to straighten it out, and it
Yeah.
turns into like a DMV exercise.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. You have no idea you have dirty hands until you want to do something. And it's like, oh yeah, you can't do this thing now. It's like a gatekeeper thing. Um, So the next question relates a little bit to small business, but it relates squarely with one of the joys of living in Ward 2, which is being able to get around. So next question is regarding transportation and mobility. What transportation and mobility policies would you prioritize to ensure Ward 2 is safe, accessible, and efficient for pedestrians, cyclists, transit riders, drivers, and more?
Sure. Thank you. Well, in some ways, this is kind of the answer to a lot of the questions that I think about. As being the chair of the Board of Zoning Adjustment, again, for 10 and a half years, I worked with all the different ANCs and the ANCs and the SMDs, and I really, I believed in the process, and I heard a lot about the community at the community level, right? So transportation issues, it would still be something that it would be kind of a community discussion if something's not working. I mean, the bus line, WMATA has to be funded. We have to figure out how to make it so that Maryland and Virginia pay their fair share, right? So that we can have good transportation, good infrastructure, making sure that micro mobility is still something that's functioning properly, like the bicycles or that you can rent here through the city and everything. That's something that I would continue to focus upon. I mean, something that has come to my attention that I would be also looking at as a council member. And again, I be at-large council member, right? So even though I do live in Ward 2 and Ward 2 is my home, it has been my home for a long time now, you know, we think about like how the e-bikes are working and whether or not they need it, the speed is too fast, and whether or not people
Yeah.
are adhering to what they need to do, and whether there needs to be some licensing or some kind of a educational program that has to be put together so that people feel safer walking around and getting around, not only Ward 2, but the entire city, is something that I think at a council level, oversight needs to be provided. So again, council oversight is what I would do in talking to the ANCs and the SMDs at the community level to see what needs to be changed or enhanced to make sure people are able to get around safely.
The next question is public spaces and quality of life. What steps would you take to ensure Ward 2's public spaces, libraries, parks, and community facilities are well maintained, welcoming, and actively used by residents and visitors?
Sure. So again, another thing that I'm trying to do, and as I mentioned at the beginning, is I'm trying to grow our economy. And so what I want to do is get more people downtown, right? I mean, Ward 2 happens again. I'm going to keep saying it is my home. And so that's where I know. And actually the office building that I'm in right now is on the corner of 12th and K that I
Yeah.
developed myself. It's called the Keckley building. Elizabeth Keckley had a seamstress shop here. She was an African American woman who brought her freedom while being a seamstress for Mary Todd Lincoln and people in that day. We named the building the Keckley building in her honor. I'm just proud of the building, but anyway, it's at 12th and K. And so the park, Franklin Square Park's right down here. We have to make sure that those amenities are funded properly, and that again, oversight is provided so that we do have good parks, so that we do have things that are going on around us that we like to do, like Adams Morgan Day or like Porch Fest that just happened, which was actually extremely well attended this year, right? And
Yeah.
so, like, I would just be looking to enhance the things that we have and make sure, again, that they're funded properly so that we continue to enjoy what we do need to do, which is make people want to come downtown.
You talk about Franklin Park, which has had a beautiful renovation over the last few years, but you still have a population there that congregates there that don't have anywhere else to go. So the next question is actually related to housing and stability. Sorry, housing stability. The next question is related to housing stability and homelessness. And the question is, what policies would you support to address homelessness in Ward 2 while ensuring residents have access to housing, supportive services, and safe communities?
Great, thank you. Yeah, well, actually, it's funny. Like Franklin Square Park's doing a lot better than it was before,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like, I mean,
yeah,
it was a much different park before the renovations, right? And so, a good friend of mine is Scott Schecklenberg. He's the president over of Miriam's Kitchen. And
yeah.
so I was talking to him just the other day about how things are working with his community and how they are working to get people that want to go to the shelters can go to the shelters. And that also, though, providing places where people feel safe is something that the homeless community also, with the people working with the homeless community, also want to see happen. So I would continue to fund people like Miriam's Kitchen, working with them as well to try to find places for people to go so that they have the opportunities not to sleep in the streets, because it's an unsafe situation for everyone in terms of not only themselves, but also the community around them in terms of what maybe things might be uncleanly at the time or different things might be coming up. But I would continue to work with the different organizations that are helping that population and make sure that they have the support they need.
On a personal note, I'm really happy you mentioned Miriam's Kitchen. I think Miriam's Kitchen is a phenomenal organization.
Also in Ward
And
2.
also in War II. And years ago, my connection to it is that years ago, I started DC's only food drive on two wheels called Cranks Giving, which is a national event. But I brought it to DC and we went around the city collecting food to donate to Miriam's Kitchen around Thanksgiving.
Oh,
But I got a chance to learn a lot about it. And one thing that always struck me with Miriam's Kitchen was their approach. I volunteered there years ago in the kitchen early in the morning. But their overall approach about kind of getting to know each person
yep.
who is unhoused in DC, I think is a novel approach. And it seems to me that like Miriam's Kitchen kind of has a lot of the answers, right? Like if
Yep.
you gave them the resources, they would know how to use them, right? Um, and not that they don't get resources, but like, you know, I'm just kind of illustrating that. So I mean, I'm happy you brought that up because it definitely seems like, there are a few things in DC that are broken and there are a few people who know how to fix them. And I think Miriam's Kitchen is one of the few orgs that knows how to
Yeah.
fix the
I mean,
issue.
Miriam's Kitchen is, as I mentioned, their wraparound services, the way they approach things, the way that I've always been touched with, they're considered clients, right? The
Yes,
people that
exactly.
come there are clients. They use the word client, right? And also homelessness is not, it's not like you go from being housed to being homeless, right? There's a trickle thing that kind of happens and they try to catch people along the way. You might be couch surfing, there's be temporary
Yeah.
housing, there's different things that can happen to hopefully get you from getting actually becoming homeless. And so, but I agree, they are a wonderful organization.
Yeah. So that's actually a good segue to our next question regarding accountability and results. So the next question is, what would you do as at-large council member to hold government agencies and services accountable to the people, particularly Ward 2 residents who live in a denser part of DC where unpicked up trash kind of festers in ways that may not in other parts of the city, right? So can you speak quickly to how you would approach accountability in this city?
So I love it. I love that. Like I do live here, right? Like literally,
Yeah.
I live right by your house, right? Like I've
Yeah, you
seen you walk the
have.
dog, right? And so it is a dense area, right? I mean, I live in Shaw, as you know, right? And so I live right next to Blagden Alley, right?
Yeah.
And Blagden Alley was nowhere you wanted to be when I was graduating high school in 1986,
Oh yeah.
right? And so now it's, whatever, some people may not like it, but it's a robust place, right? I think that accountability is something. So the 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 council, their role is to legislate, budget, and oversight, right? That's
Yeah.
what they're not the executive branch. We're not the mayor, right? And so their role is to provide oversight. So as a business owner, that's all I've done for 25 years. Well, that's not true. Part of what I do as a business owner is to provide oversight. You do reviews. Are the numbers matching up? Are the KPIs matching up? And those are the things that I would bring to the table to be able to see whether those goals, those KPIs are being met from the different agencies, right? Be it rats or whether the roads got cleaned at the right time or oversight is something that I think is very important. And then again, as I mentioned before, if I got this job, and I love this, like this is the craziest job interview I have ever been on, hands
Yeah.
down, right? Like I've never run for public office. This is something that I thought was a way to serve and give back. And so I'm finding it very humbling. But what I would do as an at-large council member is I would go see everybody right away, right? I would go on a listening tour, and Ward 2 would be one of those places that I would listen to try to understand even better what issues are going on and what they need or want. And then I would hold our different agencies and employees accountable to those issues. And as a citizen, and as someone who's been here for, as I said, 20 years and has been in the area for 50 years and has paid taxes, a lot of taxes, as a business owner, as a property owner, I want something for my money also. And so I would be able to bring that lens to the role.
The next question is about equity and inclusion. I think one of the things that you've talked about is bringing more investment to DC. And we're in that business mindset, the business experience, bringing that to the council. But with the city has seen a lot of investment, but the investment hasn't always been equally. So I'll put it another way. The city's seen a lot of investment, but the benefits of that investment hasn't been equally distributed. So how would you, as our next at-large council member, make sure that the business and that you bring to DC, the investment you bring to DC supports all residents, longtime residents, as well as new residents, small businesses as well as large businesses, folks in Ward 7, folks in Ward 2, folks in Ward 8, folks in Ward 5, right? So how do you equally distribute the success of the city?
Sure. That's a lot of stuff in there, Ben. So,
Yeah.
so I guess the thing that I think, you know, well, first of all, there's displacement, right? And so when you said displacement, it made me think of a lot of different things. One of which is housing that I'm trying to bring to the city. And also given my zoning experience, as I said, and then kind of keeping people, if people, if God, I forget the word now. It's blanking on it. But it's people that have lived here a really long time, but there's a great word for it. Now I can't remember what the word is. Oh gosh. Anyway, so there's a
Yeah,
lot of
we gotta come back to it. I don't know
yeah, no, I'm
what
trying.
the
It's such
word.
an awesome word, and I use it all the time, and I'm just blanking on it. Anyway, people that have lived here a long time, there's programs, right, that they are and aren't aware of, they need to be educated on, that basically help them pay their taxes, right? And so that's one thing that I thought's interesting. Another is that if someone decides that they want to now move because they hit the number to sell the house, that's what they've decided to do.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've found that is helpful is that a lot of times people don't know that, like, your grandmother might give you the house, you continue to make the mortgage payment, you never know whether the house is transferred in your name, then you go to refinance and suddenly find out the house is not in your name, and so that turns into a whole nother issue. It's education at that level if you're talking about that type of displacement. In
Yeah.
terms of how I hope to bring everything, or how I hope the economy grows and serves everyone, is again how I would like to bring larger businesses and medium-sized businesses and just continue to help the small businesses here in the city. In order to entice the larger businesses and even the medium-sized businesses, we need to have three things. We need to have a good school structure, like universities even, right? There's 60 plus universities and schools to bring in employees. We need to have a good transportation system. So WMATA needs to be funded. The transportation system needs to be funded well. And then we need to have affordable housing. Housing affordability is a very loose word, right? There's like, how much AFI, how much AFI, this type of stuff. As again, a board of zoning adjustment person or zoning person, I saw the different sides. There's like trying to put the pie together in terms of financing with like the Green Bank or LIHTC or incentives to put a project together. And then if that project gets approved through the Housing Production Trust Fund, I would somehow fast track it so it actually gets done through the permitting phase, because a lot of things die before they can get the financing. Then there's inclusionary zoning. That is another thing that I think is somewhat broken in terms of how people actually get into inclusionary zoning units and how they also then are getting created. So that type of experience is things that I would do to try to create more equity amongst the city. And then again, focus in areas on need in terms of, like, for me, I again go back to like the CBE thing, the program that the city looks to certified business enterprises to first fund, do work with them, which hopefully will again create more equity throughout the city.
I think that's all for my written questions, but you touched on a few things there, and I want to circle back on. And I just want to get back to your experience in zoning, right? Because a lot of folks in these interviews on the stage at forums have talked about building more housing, right? We talked about housing. You talked a little bit about things you would do to increase affordability, but let's put those two together into one question, which is what would you focus on, given your experience, what would you focus on to increase the number of housing units that are needed to meet the affordability threshold that is needed in the city to keep folks here, but also to provide housing for those who are struggling to find housing?
Sure. Thank you. So again, right now we're going through the FLUM, the future land use map, right? That
Mhm.
process. And then we're going to go through the comprehensive plan in order to find out where we're going to build things, right? And so my focus would be to try to build more density around rail lines and high-speed bus lines, right? And so like that would be something that I would start and then peel back the density from that core in order to provide more housing, more retail. There's like the I don't know if you go to Northern Virginia, but the little track from Roslyn to Clarendon is has
Yeah.
been thought of as a very good model, which again I would look towards to try to implement or working with the Office of Planning, obviously. I think those are bigger project terms that again lead you to how one is going to create affordable housing or market rate housing. It has to pencil out, right? It has to work, right? I mean, nobody's doing it just because uh well, some people are doing building housing just because they think it's the right thing to do, but at the same time it has to work, right? They can't just lose money. And so that's where you have to put the financing together. Again, as I mentioned, the Housing Production Trust Fund, which I would fully fund. But once a project got approved, it needs to be fast tracked. It needs to get through the process faster so that the financing on all the little components doesn't fall apart, right? There was a
Yeah.
project that just got done. I wish I could remember the name of it. The building looks like the Flatiron building. And it's like it's all affordable housing. Half of it, I think, is even under 50% AMI, which is really low.
Yeah.
And so, that's something that came online that took a while to do. And so you need to have kind of a longer view of that, right? But then also, I think, given my background with, zoning adjustment, I was in the zoning commission where we did PUDs and things like this, but we worked at the community level. There's little things that we could possibly do, such as the accessory dwelling units. Well, they're actually called accessory apartments, but it's like they're in your backyard, right? They
Yeah.
could be made a little bit bigger, and they could also be made so that they don't have to be owner occupied. So that's something that wouldn't necessarily change the character or fabric of the neighborhood and could be easily agreed upon with the going through the process of speaking with the ANCs and understanding what's going to happen with the community. That's like, so there's literally at two ends is how I would look at it, right? Kind of tweaking things at one end to try to do a little bit more zoning and trying to do the bigger things and try to make it easier for bigger projects. It's a long process, but it's not one silver bullet. It's all these little things that you need to do to try to solve the problem.
Yeah. And I think so much of what's happening in DC, there's so many small tweaks, big tweaks, long-term solutions and short-term solutions that need to be implemented to get to everybody's vision for the city. On that note, let's wrap up with my last question, which is you had chances to talk for about a half hour. Is there anything else that you want to add to tell Ward 2 voters about why you're the right candidate for their vote, what your vision for the city is, or anything else that you want to share?
Sure, thank you. Well, again, I just want to finish up with what I started, right? I've been in this area for 50 years. 50 years. I've seen this area change or the city change. I don't want to see it go back to the way I saw it 50 years ago, right? I also have been a small business owner here for 25 years, and I've developed a small building, small office building, small apartment building. I've seen zoning issues. I understand how to get things done. And again, right now, DC's at a crossroads. The economy is over relied on the federal government. We need to change that. The housing crisis is pushing out longtime residents. We need more housing. And then I'm running because, again, the leadership that I've experienced in both private sector and the public sector of the Board of Zoning Adjustment is the kind of leadership we need now. And the fact that I have been able to work with a variety of other people throughout my career because of, I believe, my diversity and my ability to just get things done is what one is going to need to do at the council level. You're just one of 13 people, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to somehow work with other members in order to get things done. And I think definitely they just need to be one business person, somebody who's actually created jobs, created housing, created an office. I mean, someone who's built something. I think it's wonderful, all the different things that my colleagues, competitors on my race have, but I think there should be at least one business person on the council. And so that's what I think I would bring to this job for both not only Ward 2 people, but for the entire city, because we would be your at-large council member. But Ben, I thank you so much for being here. I thank also for you allowing me to be here. I thank you for doing what you're doing. And again, I just love the fact that I live here, right? Like this is the first time, like I've been to forums all over the city. And so at least this one, I'm like, I know Ben's Chili Bowl. Well, everybody knows Ben's Chili Bowl, but I know New Vegas Lounge. I know,
Yeah.
Miss Pixie's. I know, the Chinese restaurant closed. So those are things that I, as a Ward 2 resident, would also be able to bring to the council, that lens of living here in this ward.
Well, Thanks again, Fred, for taking the time with us today. Thank you for running for this office and for sharing your vision for the city. And best of luck in the rest of the campaign.
Thanks so much.
All right. Okay. So, Fred, you mentioned your business background a number of times during the interview. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that background will translate to success for the city and what connections that you have that are different than anybody else in the race?
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, I've been here now for 20 years, 25 years as a business owner and 10 years in the city. But I've been a member of the federal city council. I had to retire in order to do this. They said I can come back after I either win or don't win. And then I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for a long time, and as well as the Chamber of Commerce, the government relations division of the Chamber of Commerce, where they look at what's the city council going on. But basically, those connections and understanding how the community works, I think that'll translate well to bringing people into DC, bringing work into DC. At least there would be somebody on the council that people could relate to as a business owner. And so that's, again, I think is a unique perspective, given that I have these different connections here in the city already that could be of use at the council level.
Now, oftentimes, in a way I don't like, but happens anyway, it's kind of like this two-sided coin in DC. You have the business versus the people, right? Are you saying that you're going to bridge the gap, or are you saying that you understand that you understand that both sides, people and business, and you can kind of speak to both,
No,
or
I
something
appreciate.
different?
No, I appreciate. I think that as I mentioned before, I had to bring people together at this Board of Zoning adjustment. And so I have had, I think just because of my background and
Yeah,
my ability of not having money in the beginning and having to go through tough times gives me an opportunity to talk with a lot of different people. And also being an immigrant, my mother was an immigrant. So being a child of an immigrant is something that I bring to the table that's easy, that makes me, I think, easier to talk to. And so that's what I think I'm also bringing because exactly you have to be able to translate, you have to speak both ways to your point, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm in the middle, right? I really am in the middle. I'm just trying to get things done, but I want to listen to the left, I want to listen to the right, and just figure out how to get things done for the city. And so I would be a bridge builder, if you want to say, because I have, I believe, again, a diversity that allows for that.
That's great. All right.